you?
I haven't seen you in a little while.
Yeah,
What's happening?
not much.
Not much? What you got going on today?
Plumbing repairs.
Oh dear.
Well, good morning again, YouTube. I guess today we're still on the struggle bus trying to finish up these plumbing issues. As you saw in the last video, we got the faucet installed just to realize that we had more leaks. I went to the local Lowe's and I bought some products so we can fix it. And man, I'm really surprised at how expensive it was to get all of this stuff. All of these components that I purchased, along with a section of 1/2-inch line. Yeah, I got the red, even though red's really for hot. They had red, they had blue, they had white, but they were out of stock on the white in the 5-foot length, and I didn't really want to deal with the 10-foot length, so I just bought shorter red. I'm going to end up redoing all this someday, so this is just temporary, and it'll do. But anyway, all of this stuff cost me $90, and plumbing parts used to be cheap. As you can see, that is not a lot of product. Now, keep in mind, I already had the crimping tool, so I did not just purchase this. However, I did purchase some extra crimp rings. Turns out I didn't need them because I had a whole bag of them here already, but I forgot to check my inventory level before I went to Lowe's, so I ended up buying another bag just to be safe, but they're not that expensive. So outside of the bag of rings, what I bought was a new swivel fitting to go to that shower fixture. And that is to replace the piece that we removed in the previous video because it was split. There we go, all the way down. I also bought 2 shutoff valves for that sink because there are no shutoff valves there already. And truth is, had we had shutoff valves, I could have diagnosed more of the leaks beforehand and had more materials here to do so. I just think it's a good idea at every faucet like that to be able to have a shutoff just in case of emergency. So we're gonna put these in line where the faucet is. Also, if you noticed, where that other leak was underneath the little white fitting was in there, that pipe kind of comes down and loops around and goes back up, and then it's got a T in it where the other faucet line fixed to, which I believe is the cold side. However, none of it is labeled, and it's really hard to tell which is which. Even the old faucet wasn't labeled, so I don't know which line went to what. So I'm hoping I do it all right the first time. If not, I just got to swap lines. It's not that big of a deal. And so this is the piece I'm talking about. And you see, you've got the line where the faucet hooks up there in the middle. And this bottom line with that white fitting where they've done a repair before, and it comes up and it goes back up into here where the other line is. Now, if I back out of here, come over to here, that's where all 3 of these lines come in. You see there's the one fitting there, and the other is way down in there. So what I'm going to do is replumb that whole system there, because the area where it's leaking there is going to be very difficult to repair. And you see the repairs they did weren't the right repairs. They were terrible. And there's no reason for all that to come way over here. When all 3 of the other lines that feed this faucet are over here, I'm just going to put all the shutoffs over here because they're much easier to access through this little hole on the top than it is going underneath the cabinet. And also what that allowed me to do is build everything out there on the bench and just come in here and make the final connections. So that is why I also have this T-fitting and another 90-degree. And basically, this is how I'm going to work that assembly. So where those lines come in, I'm going to make a configuration kind of like this. Obviously, we will have our line coming in, going out to the supply line to the sink, and then returning back. But all this will be in that other cubby hole and easier to access. And the final components that I purchased were these shark bite adapters. Now, I hate to say it, this is one of the reasons that this project is costing so much money, because these things are $10 a piece, but they adapt from that polyvinyl pipe to either PEX or copper or PVC. They will all fit in there, but you have to have an adapter to go from what's existing to what's going to be new. And I couldn't just repair it with new poly because you can't buy the poly pipe anymore. You can't buy the crimp rings to crimp the poly anymore. So you have to use some type of an adapter. Well, at least I couldn't get them where at my store. Now, normally there is an adapter that's barbed, and one side is for the poly and the other side would be for the PEX. Unfortunately, they were out of them, and those fittings are only like $2 a piece, and I was gonna need 4 of them. So that would have been $8 and change, maybe 10 total out the door, and it just wasn't available. So I had to buy 4 of these shark bites, which I'm not a huge fan of, but they're going to get the job done. But they were $10 a piece. So just those 4 fittings was over $40 of the $90 total that we had. Now guys, this may be a good time to put a disclaimer in here that I am obviously not a plumber. I've had no plumbing training whatsoever. I am not teaching you how to make plumbing repairs. I'm just sharing with you what I'm going to do to get this thing working and livable for when Gabe gets here. So don't do what I'm doing necessarily, or don't take this as a training video. It's just what I'm doing. But with that said, plumbing isn't really all that complicated at this level. Now, I'm not talking about high-rise buildings and whatnot, but typical residential plumbing is pretty simple. As a general rule of thumb, hot on the left, cold on the right, poop flows downhill. All right, enough rambling. Let's get to making these repairs. I'm going to try to pre-make everything out here on the bench and then take it in and install it. All right, guys, and for my first fitting, I've installed the swivel into the pipe, and it does take a little effort to slide them all the way into the pipe. And we've got a copper ring that we will then slide up here, and then we're going to use this crimp tool to crimp it on. Now I've already got my 1/2-inch die set into the crimp tool. So we're going to go ahead and make this first crimp, and then we're going to use this gauge to check and make sure that everything is right. It's been a long time since I've used this tool, so I want to make sure it's calibrated properly. All right guys, pretty simple crimp. And then now when you take this tool, you'll see that right here it says 1/2-inch go, and on this side it says 1/2-inch no go. So you want to make sure that this side fits, so you want to take it and slide it over. You see there, it fits over just fine. Flip the tool around, and it does not go. And that's exactly how it should be. As long as the side that says go fits, and the side that says no go does not fit, then it's considered a good crimp. Now, we will check every single one of our connections as we go along, and we build this little assembly here. And that's all we needed to do on this pipe. Now we just have to cut this pipe to length, but before we do, I want to go inspect the other pipe inside and make sure that we are past all of our damage point, and then give it a clean cut. Because when I cut this out of there, I just used a pair of side cutters when I cut this out the other day. So it's not a good clean cut. I just wanted to get it out of there so that I made sure to go get the right size on everything at the store. So now I'm going to take my good cutting tool and go get a good clean cut, and then we will cut this to length and get it installed. All right, that is what the nasty jagged edge looks like. I'm going to get the cutter and clean that up. All right, and here we go. Nice clean cut. And luckily I've got a lot of room to work with this here, so my length doesn't have to be exact. All right, I have my swivel end connected up here and my cut ends down here. Now it's just time to install the shark bite. And for the most part, the shark bites are pretty easy to use. They just push into place. All right guys, and here are my 2 repair pieces. So on this one, we just have a straight pipe. We will just cut that one and slide that on. This one, we have the pipe coming in that needs to return. So we will cut them to length inside there and slide those on. Now you'll see that I don't have the compression ferrule and the cap on these water supply lines, and that's because the faucet already has them built into those lines, so we do not need to use them there. So we're not even going to take them inside. So all we should need on the inside are our 2 repair pieces and the cutter. And let me show you how this works real quick. So it's actually fairly simple. You take your pipe and you take the cutter, you squeeze it a little bit, and you can get it to open up some. Slide the pipe in, and you'll see there's an arrow. And you really just kind of hold a little bit of pressure here and then just rotate the pipe. That easy. Nice clean cut. And with the shark bite fittings, the one thing that's really important is to make sure that you press them on firmly. So when you're actually pressing them onto a pipe, you're going to feel a little bit of a stop once you get it installed. But you got to push just a little bit harder, and you'll kind of feel that secondary stop. So I guess one of them is actually the seal, and the second one is the teeth or whatever it is that grabs it and stops it from coming off. All in all, it's not hard to do. You just got to make sure you get them in all the way. All right, I'm not so sure I'm going to be able to film this repair, but right in this area here is where we're going to cut these pipes and make these connections. That way the shutoffs and everything are nice and easily accessible right here. All right, and there's our new assemblies. Still quite difficult to reach in there and do that with one hand, but I got it done. So now we just need to take our new water supplies and connect them down there. But you can see all this pipe is what we eliminated by doing it this way. All right, guys, all the lines are connected. And now, the moment of truth. I'm gonna reach up here and turn water on and see what happens. All right, I hear the pump running. Pump's running, I hear water moving, but it sounds like it's just through the pipes and maybe filling the hot water heater. I don't necessarily hear sounds of leaks anywhere, but we're gonna check our connections. Pump is slowing down, which means it's building pressure. That's a good sign. Unfortunately, looks like we've got a little bit of leakage down in here still. All right, looks like I found another leak. Let's turn this pump off. Something underneath the ice maker is leaking, so let's look into that. Yeah, whatever's leaking underneath the ice maker, it's a pretty good leak. That's a lot of water running out. A lot of water. All right, guys, it looks like it's just like a hose type fitting in here that's leaking like crazy. So that may be as simple as a new rubber ring. Yep, so the hose gasket that was in there, definitely pretty old and deformed and stiff. So I know I've got some of these out in the garden shed. So we're just gonna grab a new one, replace it, and hopefully that fixes this problem. Relatively simple. All right, now here with all my pressure washing equipment, I have plenty of replacement hose gaskets. And unfortunately, look, I have a foam cannon. It sure would have been nice to remember that I had a foam cannon a couple of weeks ago when I was washing Goliath. You know, somebody even mentioned in the comments, you need one. And I was like, I have one. I forgot I had one until they said that. There it is. And truth is, I'm not saying I don't believe in the ability of foam cannons, but nothing does as good of a job as actually brushing and scrubbing it. Some things that a pressure washer and a foam cannon just don't get off. You know, and again, back to the shutoff thing, this is a perfect reason why I think every appliance or every outlet in the RV should have a shutoff. There should be a manifold someplace near the water inlet so you can shut off any circuit that you need to, because we don't really need an ice maker in December while Gabe is here. I could have easily just shut that off and been done with this. So I'm hoping this works. Let's go find out. All right, new washer in. Let's try this one more time. And fail. Hey guys, don't laugh, but I had to come up with a creative solution here. So I've tried multiple times to get this fitting to seal. Now, the problem I'm having is where the hose coupler attaches to the ice maker itself. And that is a plastic body. Maybe the problem's in the plastic body and I just can't see it. But no matter what, I get water spraying out through the threads. The connection here where the copper line comes in with the compression fitting, no problems there. It's only where the hose thread goes on. So I decided to bypass that. Now, I decided this after trying 3 different gaskets and it not working in there. I even tried the gaskets and wrapping the hose pipe with some thread tape, which you shouldn't have to do, but I was kind of frustrated and thought I'd give it a go. Well, that failed also. So what I did now is I took this fitting off and we're 86ing that part. So I found an M5 bolt with a 0.8 thread pitch and I tapped the inside hole of this fitting. I put that in there, wrapped it up with some Teflon tape, got the bolt good and tight. I'm hoping this will seal and we're just gonna bypass the entire ice machine. Again, if there was a shut off, make this easy. I could just turn it off and say, screw it. But so you'll give this a try and hopefully it works. So basically we are just creating a cap or a plug. Well, that worked well. However, when the pump was running, it still wouldn't shut off all the way. And I looked back at the pump where I mentioned earlier, you can see a little bit more water, and it looks like where one of the bolts goes through part of the pump assembly itself. There's water leaking out of there. I've dried it off and just let it sit, and I can slowly see chiller water coming from it. So I'm gonna pull the pump out, see if I can fix the pump. All right, guys, I've taken the pump out and I've brought it into the shop, and it looks like this seam right here is what may be leaking. In fact, from that screw is where I see the water coming out when it's connected. I've inspected the housing and I don't see any cracks in the housing. So I'm wondering if it's just in that gasket area. Maybe I can take it apart and reseal it. Let's find out. All right, guys, I got it all apart. And basically, this is the pump assembly here. And you can see there's this gasket that runs around it, and that gasket actually goes underneath all that, and it separates this, the dry side, from this, the wet side, as it attaches to the motor assembly. And then this cap goes on top, and that gasket, not only does it seal the wet side from the dry side, it also seals where this cap goes on, and that's where we're having our leak. Well, that is obviously a specially made gasket, and we're not going to get anything in this shop to be able to replace it with. So, and I doubt you can buy that separately. I'm pretty sure that's the way the pump comes. So we're either down to buying a new pump or attempting to seal it ourselves. So if buying a new pump is the worst case scenario, I'm going to attempt to put some sealant around here and reassemble it, and hopefully that works. And if it doesn't, then we'll just go buy another pump, but it's worth a try, right? All right, so I've got it all sealed up. Got a decent bead of silicone coming out of there. I'm actually gonna take this inside the house tonight and let it cure, because it's gonna be cold out here tonight and it probably won't get full cure by tomorrow. And I don't wanna put pressure to it now. So that's what we're gonna do, take it inside. Well, guys, until that dries, there's not a whole lot more I can do on this project anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean up my mess, put away my junk. And I'm gonna find something else to tinker with today. So maybe even the tractor or something, I don't know. But for right now, we're gonna end this one here. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And until the next time we see you, keep those engines running.